Good afternoon, everyone. From this session onwards, we will try to understand the concepts of genetic engineering of plants. So, under this, we will be trying to know about the plant transformation with the TI plasmid of Agrobacterium tumefaciens. Then we will also try to understand the TI plasmid derived vector systems and the physical methods of transferring genes to the plants and use of reporter genes in transformed plant cells, and also about developing plant strains by the genetic engineering. So, a considerable effort has gone into developing varieties of plants that produce increased yields and have enhanced nutritional value. Although much of this endeavor has been directed towards the three major grains, as we know, number one, the corn, number two, the wheat, and number three, the rice. But successful breeding programs for other food plants and also the horticultural species, they have also been established. Now, the recombinant DNA technology, which has been used extensively with microbial systems, has become an important tool for the direct genetic manipulation in case of plants. And we know that there are a number of effective DNA delivery systems and also the vectors, that is the expression vectors, that work very well in a range of plant cells. But the interesting feature is the plant cells are totipotent, which means that an entire plant can be regenerated from a single plant cell. So, what is the advantage of this? So, the fertile transgenic plants, it can often be produced from genetically engineered cells. And if the transgenic plant then, if it flowers and produces the viable seeds, the desired trait, so that is passed on to successive generations or offsprings. Right. If you just look at from the transgenic plant perspective, there are three major reasons for developing transgenic plants. First is the addition of gene or genes which often improve the value of the agricultural or the horticultural or even the ornamental crop plants. And the second reason is that the transgenic plant, they act as the bioreactors, that is living bioreactors, for the inexpensive production of economically important proteins or metabolites. And third major reason is that the plant genetic transformation, or what we call it as transgenesis, it provides a powerful means for studying the action of genes during the development and other biological processes. So, these are the three major reasons why we have to know more about the process of transgenesis. Right? First is addition of gene, so that an improvement with respect to the value of the horticultural, agricultural, or even ornamental plants increases, and they act as bioreactors. That is, the transgenic plants, they act as bioreactors for the most important proteins or metabolites, and this provides a way to know more about the developmental and other biological processes. Right. Some of the genetically determined traits that can be introduced into plants by a single gene or possibly a small cluster of genes include, say for example, insecticidal activity, that is against the insects, or the protection against viral infection, or maybe the resistance to the herbicides, or even the delay of senescence. And if there are environmental stress, so tolerance to the environmental stresses, pigmentation, that is with respect to flower pigmentation, any alteration with respect to flower pigmentation, improved nutritional quality of the seed proteins, and self incompatibility. So these are some of the important genetically determined traits that can be introduced into plants either as a single gene or possibly a small cluster of genes. So to date, numerous transgenic plants have been generated. Those include many crop plants such as tomato, potato, cotton, soybean, carrot, cabbage, sunflower, sugar beet, papaya, eggplant, grape, corn, rice, and so on and so forth. So in the near future, the plant biotechnology not only will have an enormous impact on the traditional plant breeding programs, but will also be used to create plants with novel characteristics. So you will be definitely witnessing the developments in the plant biotechnology very shortly. It is no more restricted to only traditional plant breeding programs or just improvising the breeding programs. It is more focused to create plants with novel characteristics. Right? So the course is mainly focused on the plant transformation with the TI plasmid of Agrobacterium tumefaciens. We will discuss in detail about the process of transformation by taking the TI plasmid of Agrobacterium tumefaciens. So as you all know, it is a gram-negative soil bacterium and it is a phytopathogen, that is, as a normal part of its life cycle, genetically transforms the plant cells. Now this genetic transformation, which is normal part of the bacterium life cycle, so this genetic transformation leads to the formation of crown gall tumors. Now this interfere with the normal growth of an infected plant. This agronomically important disease affects only dicotyledonous plants, that is dicots. Say for example, the grapes, roses, so on and so forth. Now the crown gall formation is a consequence of the transfer, integration and expression of genes of a specific segment of bacterial plasmid DNA, which we call it as the tDNA or the transferred DNA, to where it is transferred into the plant cell genome. So the crown gall formation is the consequence of transfer, integration and expression of specific segment of bacterial plasmid DNA, which we call it as the transferred DNA or the tDNA. Now this tDNA is actually part of the tumor inducing plasmid that is carried by most strains of Agrobacterium tumefaciens. Okay, depending on which bacterial strain the TI plasmid comes from, the length of the tDNA region can vary approximately between 12 to 24 kilo base pairs. So this is dependent on from which bacterial strain the TI plasmid comes from. So the strains of Agrobacterium tumefaciens that do not possess a TI plasmid, it cannot induce crown gall. This is the normal part of the life cycle, where it genetically transforms the plant cells. Right. Now the initial step in the infection process is the attachment of Agrobacterium tumefaciens to a plant cell at the site of an open wound. Usually it is at the base of the stem. So we call it as the crown part. Initially it was thought that the Agrobacterium tumefaciens infected wounded plants because the physical barrier of the cell wall had been breached by the injury, so thus facilitating the entry of the bacterium. But it is not so. Now it is known that these bacteria respond to certain plant phenolic compounds such as acetosyringone and hydroxyacetosyringone. So these are secreted by susceptible wounded plants. Now these wound response compounds resemble some of the products of phenylpropanoid metabolism, which is supposed to be the major plant pathway for the synthesis of plant secondary metabolites, for example lignins and flavonoids. So these small molecules, that is acetosyringone and hydroxysyringone, they act to induce the activity of the virulence genes that are encoded on the TI plasmid. So the virulence genes, that is abbreviated as VIR genes. These virulence genes are located on a 35 kilo base pair region of the TI plasmid, and this, as you can see in the schematic representation, this lies outside of the tDNA region. Now it is suggested that the products of the virulence genes are essential for the transfer and integration of the tDNA region into the genome of the plant cell. And there are at least 7 and possibly even 8 different virulence genes. So these are responsible for transfer and integration of the tDNA region. Right. After a TI plasmid carrying cell of Agrobacterium tumefaciens attaches to a host plant cell and the virulence genes are induced, then the tDNA is transferred by a process that is thought to be similar to plasmid transfer from donor cell to the recipient cell, as we have seen in bacterial conjugation. It is very much similar to that. Once the Agrobacterium tumefaciens attaches to a host plant cell and the virulence genes are induced, the tDNA is transferred by a process that is very much similar to bacterial conjugation. That is the plasmid transfer from donor cell to the recipient cell. So in this model, the tDNA is transferred as a linear single-stranded molecule from the TI plasmid. Then it passes into the plant cell and then eventually becomes integrated in the plant chromosomal DNA. So the 5' end of the single-stranded tDNA carries the right border sequence and the left border sequence is at the 3' end. Right. So the tDNA, it is transferred as a linear single-stranded DNA molecule from the TI plasmid. And then it eventually becomes integrated at the plant chromosomal DNA, and the 5' end of the single-stranded tDNA carries the right border sequence and the left border sequence is at the 3' because it is transferred as a linear single-stranded DNA molecule. So the formation of the single-stranded form of tDNA is initiated by strand-specific cutting at both borders of the intact tDNA region. So if you can see the right border and the left border, you will understand that the strand-specific cutting happens at both borders of the intact tDNA region. Now, the integration of the tDNA into the plant genome is thought to be dependent on specific sequences that are located at the right border sequence of the tDNA. Now, this border contains a repeating unit that consists of about 25 base pairs. The similar 25 base pair repeat is also present at the left border, but deletion studies have shown that this region is not involved in the integration process and it is only the right border sequence of about 25 base pairs, which are repeating sequences. It is involved in the integration process and not the left border region. So that is what is to be kept in mind. It is only the right border repeating units, which consists of about 25 base pairs, are involved in the integration process. And most of the genes that are located within the tDNA regions are activated only after the tDNA is inserted into the plant genome. Before that, they are not activated. The products of these genes, they are responsible for the crown gall formation. So these genes get activated only after the tDNA is inserted into the plant genome. And these genes are, or the products of these genes are responsible for crown gall formation. Now the tDNA region includes genes such as IAAM and IAAH. So these are also known as TMS1 and TMS2 respectively. These pair of genes encodes enzymes that synthesizes the plant hormone auxin, that is indole acetic acid. Specifically the gene IAAM, it codes for the enzyme tryptophan 2 monooxygenase, which converts the tryptophan to indole 3 acetamide, and the gene IAAH contains the information, or it codes for indole 3 acetamide hydrolase, which converts indole 3 acetamide to indole acetic acid. Okay. Now, in addition to tDNA region carries the TMR genes, they are also known as IPT genes, which encodes isopentenyl transferase. Now, this enzyme adds 5' AMP to an isoprenoid side chain to form the cytokinins isopentenyl adenine and isopentenyl adenosine. So the hydroxylation of these two molecules by plant enzymes, they generate the cytokinins called as trans-zeatin and trans-ribosyl-zeatin. So both auxin and the cytokinins, they regulate plant cell growth and development, and these genes are activated only after the tDNA is inserted into the plant genome. Both auxin and cytokinins, they regulate plant cell growth and development. In excess, they can cause the plant to develop tumorous growth such as crown galls if in excess. Right. So if you can carefully observe the figure A, this is about the auxin pathway, which involves the conversion of tryptophan to indole 3 acetamide by tryptophan monooxygenase, and then indole 3 acetamide to indole acetic acid by indole 3 acetamide hydrolase. And in figure B, here the cytokinin synthesis reaction entails the attachment of an isopentenyl moiety from isopentenyl diphosphate to 5' adenosine monophosphate, that is 5' AMP, by the enzyme isopentenyl transferase to form IPA, that is isopentenyl adenosine monophosphate. Right. In addition to auxin and cytokinin biosynthesis genes, the tDNA region from each specific TI plasmid carries a gene for the synthesis of a molecule called an opine. Now, these opines are unique and unusual condensation products of an amino acid and a keto acid, or it could be an amino acid and a sugar. Say for example, the condensation product of arginine and pyruvic acid is called octopine. Arginine with alpha ketoglutaraldehyde is nopaline, and agropine is a bicyclic sugar derivative of glutamic acid. So the opines are synthesized within the crown gall and then they are secreted. Then these can be used as a carbon source and sometimes even the nitrogen source by any Agrobacterium tumefaciens that carries the TI plasmid bone gene for the catabolism of that particular opine. right? The opine catabolism gene or genes is on the Ti plasmid, but it is not part of the tDNA region. So you will not find these genes on the tDNA region, but it is present on the Ti plasmid. And most soil organisms that have been tested are incapable of utilizing opines as a carbon source. It is only the Agrobacterium tumefaciens which is capable of utilizing these opines as carbon source, right? With respect to the Ti plasmid derived vector systems, there are certain limitations which are associated with the Ti plasmids. The simplest way to exploit the ability of the Ti plasmid to genetically transform plants would be to insert a desired DNA sequence into the tDNA region and then use the Ti plasmid and Agrobacterium tumefaciens to deliver and insert this gene into the genome of the susceptible plant cell. So this is a simple typical approach, that is making use of the Ti plasmid. That means inserting a desired DNA sequence into the tDNA region and then use the Ti plasmid and the Agrobacterium tumefaciens to deliver and insert this gene into the genome of the susceptible plant cell. However, although these Ti plasmids are effective natural vectors, they have serious limitations to be considered as routine cloning vectors. Number one, the production of phytohormones by transformed cells growing in culture conditions, they prevent them from being regenerated into mature plants. Therefore, the auxin and cytokinin genes must be removed from any Ti plasmid derived cloning vector. If you just keep on the auxin and cytokinin genes and if you do a plant transformation experiment, the hormones, the production of these hormones by the transformed cells, they prevent the cells from being regenerated into mature plants. So the Ti plasmid or Ti plasmid derived cloning vector should not contain auxin and cytokinin genes. They must be removed. Number two, a gene encoding opine synthesis is not useful to a transgenic plant for the reason that it may lower the final plant yield by diverting plant resources into opine production. So if the gene for opine synthesis is still present, then probably it will lower the final plant yield because this will divert the plant resources into opine production. Therefore, the opine synthesis gene should be removed. Number three, the Ti plasmids are large, approximately 200 to 800 kilobase pairs. So, for recombinant DNA experiments, a smaller version is preferred. So, large segments of DNA that are not essential for a cloning vector must be removed. So, usually it is the smaller version that is preferred, and the segments of DNA that are not essential for cloning vector, they have to be removed. And the fourth one is the Ti plasmid does not replicate in E. coli. So, the convenience of perpetuating and manipulating the Ti plasmids carrying the inserted DNA sequence in this bacterium does not exist. Therefore, whenever we develop a Ti plasmid based vector, an origin of replication that can be used in E. coli must be added, right? First is auxin and cytokinin genes must be removed. Opine synthesis genes should be removed. Large segments of DNA that are not essential for cloning vector must be removed. and origin of replication that can be used in E. coli must be added, because Ti plasmids do not replicate in E. coli. So these should be taken care of, otherwise they are some of the serious limitations that we encounter when we try to use the Ti plasmids as routine cloning vectors. Right? So in the next session we will see how the Ti plasmid based vectors are organized and what are the components that they are having or they contain. So till then, I'll stop my discussion over here. Thank you very much.